In 1978, Gordon Murray bolted a massive fan to the back of a Brabham F1 car. The fan sucked air from underneath, gluing the car to the track through pure mechanical force. Niki Lauda drove it once in Sweden, qualified second, won by 34 seconds. Then the car was banned, not because it was illegal, because it was too fast. And every other team threatened to build their own version, turning F1 into a fan car arms race that would have bankrupted half the grid. That's what happens when regulations don't exist. So what if we removed all aerodynamic regulations from modern F1? No limits on wings, no floor restrictions, no diffuser dimensions. Just pure unhinged downforce development. Let's talk about what would actually happen. Now, F1 tried unrestricted ground effect once, between 1978 and 1982. Cornering speeds went absolutely ballistic. Alain Prost's pole position time in Brazil 1982 was over 6 seconds faster than Nelson Piquet's pole lap 12 months earlier. 6 seconds in 1 year. Patrick Depailler died at Hockenheim in 1980. Gilles Villeneuve in 1982. Riccardo Paletti at Canada in 1982. All in ground effect cars. And actually, the problem wasn't just with the speed. It was the sudden loss of downforce. When cars began cornering at higher speeds, it became very dangerous when they suddenly lost the suction effect created by ground effect tunnels under the car. Hit a bump or lose a skirt, and your car instantly transforms from glued to the track into a missile. After winning in Brazil, Piquet collapsed on the podium. Drivers were finishing races bruised, battered, and borderline destroyed. The steering was brutally heavy. The suspension was rock hard, and they were pulling G-forces that legitimately endangered their health. In November 1982, ground effects were officially banned. Flat bottoms became mandatory for 1983. Now, imagine removing regulations entirely in 2025. Ground effect on steroids. Active aero everywhere. Fans, movable skirts, whatever works. And it gets so much worse. The dirty little secret about unrestricted aero is that the money disappears into a black hole. F1 teams invest approximately $60 to $100 million to build their own wind tunnels. That's just to build one. Running a wind tunnel costs around $10 million a year, and that's with restrictions. Now, before 2009, when there were no limits, Formula One wind tunnels ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, performing upwards of 200 runs daily. Some teams operated 2 tunnels simultaneously. Without regulations, that's where we go again. Except now, teams would be burning through hundreds of millions just trying to keep up. We know Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull would throw unlimited money at the problem. Ford recently spent $200 million on a wind tunnel in Michigan. Honda spent $124 million in Ohio. Those are road car companies. Imagine what an F1 manufacturer would spend with no rules stopping them. Haas, Williams, Sauber, dead. Immediately, no question. They simply can't afford one state-of-the-art wind tunnel, let alone running it non-stop while simultaneously developing computational fluid dynamic systems and fabricating hundreds of test parts every week. The cost cap sits at $135 million right now. Remove aero regulations, and just the development costs would eclipse that before a single car hits the track. The 2022 regulations brought back ground effects specifically to help cars follow each other. It worked. Kind of. Porpoising became a nightmare. At the first preseason test in Barcelona in 2022, George Russell said extreme porpoising could lead to safety issues. Now, imagine no regulations. Of course, teams would prioritize pure downforce over wake management. Why care if the car behind you gets destroyed in turbulence when you're 3 seconds a lap faster? Overtaking would vanish. DRS wouldn't matter because the dirty air would be so terrible that cars couldn't get within a second of each other anyway. Yeah, we get Monaco-level processional racing at every circuit. The fan car was dominant because it generated downforce independent of airflow. Even a stationary BT-46B noticeably sucked itself into the road as the engine revved. Without regulations, every team would chase that concept. Fan cars, active skirts, ultra-low ride heights, aggressive Venturi tunnels. And the turbulence coming off those cars would be apocalyptic. Racing would die. Now, let me be very honest about this. Modern F1 safety exists because of regulations. The huge amounts of downforce created by ground effect became increasingly dangerous, and aside from fatal accidents, a number of drivers crashed heavily enough for their careers to be brought to an end. We know it was banned due to concerns for driver safety. Driving over uneven ground or hitting a hump could cause the vehicle to suddenly lose its downforce, reducing grip and potentially resulting in spectacular aerial crashes. Without aero regulations, teams would push cornering speeds to insane levels. I'm talking about corners taken at 200 plus kilometers an hour that are currently taken at 160. Crashes wouldn't just be faster, they'd be fundamentally more violent because the cars would have exponentially more energy. And when something breaks, come on. A wing failure at 300 kilometers an hour with unrestricted downforce isn't a spin. It's a potential fatality. The Halo saved lives. The survival cell is engineered to absurd standards. But none of that was designed for cars pulling 4, 5, maybe 6 Gs through corners because teams built uncapped aerodynamic monsters. If one of the skirts broke, it could send a car off the track at massive speed with no warning for the driver. So yeah, regulations exist because F1 learned these lessons the hard way, in blood. Unrestricted aero doesn't create competition, it creates domination. The Brabham BT-46B fan car won on its debut at the Swedish Grand Prix in 1978 and never raced again. The car remains the only F1 entrant with a 100% win record. One race, one win, done. That's what happens when someone finds a legal loophole in loose regulations. Now, imagine 10 teams with unlimited budgets all chasing the same loophole simultaneously. The first team to crack it wins everything, until someone else outdevelops them in 6 months. Then that team dominates. Bernie Ecclestone, owner of Brabham and secretary of FOCA, was pressured by other team bosses led by Colin Chapman to withdraw the BT-46B. They knew it would destroy competitive balance. And remember, this was 1978, before CFD, before modern composites, before the kind of money that flows through F1 today. In 2025, with Formula One revenue jumping from $1.78 billion in 2017 to $3.4 billion, let's just say Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull would build facilities that make current wind tunnels look like kids' toys. They'd hire entire universities worth of aerodynamicists. And independent teams wouldn't just struggle to keep up, they'd cease to exist. Okay, so let's game this out. What would really happen? Year 1. Teams go nuclear on development, billion-dollar budgets, unrestricted testing. The midfield collapses instantly because they can't afford the arms race. Year 2. Mercedes or Ferrari cracks the ultimate aero concept, wins every race by 30 seconds. Viewership tanks because nobody wants to watch a procession. Year 3. The FIA panics and reintroduces regulations anyway, but half the grid is bankrupt and the sport's credibility is shattered. This isn't just speculation. Guys, this is history. The Commission Sportive Internationale intervened to declare that henceforth fan cars would not be allowed. Not because they wanted to stifle innovation, because the alternative was watching F1 tear itself apart. Regulations aren't the enemy of F1. They're the only reason F1 still exists as a competitive sport. The 2026 regulations are introducing active aerodynamics. Cars will have Z mode for cornering and X mode for low drag straight line speed, with movable front and rear wing elements. But it's controlled. The FIA knows exactly what they're allowing and why. The 2026 cars will be shorter by 200 millimeters and narrower by 100 millimeters. Smaller, lighter, more agile. That's intentional. Because unrestricted development doesn't make better racing. It makes faster cars that can't race each other. Current regulations force innovation within boundaries. Teams have 320 to 400 wind tunnel hours depending on championship position. It's limited, controlled. It's not perfect, yeah, but it works. No aerodynamic regulations sounds like a dream for engineers. In reality, though, it's sort of a nightmare. Costs explode. Safety collapses. Racing dies. And the teams with the deepest pockets dominate until there's just nobody left to compete against. F1 tried it multiple times, and it nearly killed drivers and bankrupted teams every single time. In my opinion, the 2026 rules will probably need tweaking. Active aero will create new challenges. But unrestricted development isn't innovation, it's chaos. And chaos doesn't sell tickets. Before you go, here's my question. Do you actually think unrestricted aero would make F1 better? Or would it just turn the sport into a billionaire science experiment where the only winners are the accountants? Drop your take in the comments. Seriously, I want to know if anyone genuinely believes removing regulations would improve the show. And if you're here for F1 content that doesn't treat you like an idiot, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started.